Hey everybody, this is Clint. Jumping right into it here. Billy Tucci was dogpiled on Twitter. It was a coordinated dogpiling. Normally this kind of thing, it's like it happens so frequently that you kind of just shrug it off, or most people shrug it off. The problem is when it happens to somebody that has no idea what's happening or what they've done wrong, what kind of rule that they've violated. That's where things become really weird. And that's where my heart goes out to people. So like Billy Tucci, I actually was on a stream with him on, this was on Peter Sabetti's live stream. And Billy Tucci was a guest there, and we are just talking about our comic books and crowdfunding and things. And Billy Tucci's a really, really nice guy. I talked to him off the air a little bit and on the air, and all around. I really respect him. I think he's a cool guy. He just reminds me of just like a cool dad, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that shows my age. Yeah, there's something just innocent about him. And like he's there to make comics. That's his goal. Politics aside, that's not really his focus. Okay. So on his stream, he's been building up his own channel, and he's been getting a little bit more attention because he's been working hard at building up his channel. And he's been friends with Ethan Van Sciver for who knows how long on a personal basis. They've been friends for quite a while. And so, he's been doing his thing, but now he wants to be doing more crowdfunding. And I think a lot of Comicsgate fans, even though Billy himself has never said that he's quote unquote Comicsgate, he's just there trying to make comics. But he's a nice guy, and a lot of Comicsgate fans want to support him, which is their right to do, right? And yeah. Anyway, so the problem arose when he had a couple of the guys from War Campaign on his stream to talk about their comic Vestige. Now, this has always been my opinion from the beginning, is that I think that comic sales are good, and I'm happy if even SJW comics, as long as they're not, changing existing superheroes to spite people, but if they're creating their own comics, especially in indie comics, go ahead, knock yourself out, make SJW comic books if that's what you want to do, make non-political comic books. And yeah, if you want to make far-right comic books, again, this is a free country. That's something you have every right to do. Having said that, Vestige is not a far-right comic book. In fact, I don't think it has anything to do with politics whatsoever. It's genuinely just a story. So Billy Tucci had the creators of Vestige on his show, and they talked about comics. And that made some people, somewhere between 2 and 12 people on Twitter pretty upset about it. And I think it was pretty disingenuous. So I'm going to go over this because I got piled on Twitter twice, I think. The first time was probably more aggressive, and I was a little bit more naive at the time. The second time, I was better. I knew what was going on. I was better able to handle it. Having said that, I don't really have anything to lose. So it hasn't ever really been that big of a deal for me. However, I have seen it really be a difficult process for other people I know. And every time I see it happening, it makes me upset, and it makes me want to help out in any way that I can. And so, yeah, usually I think it's good to just make sure to tweet at those people words of support so they know that those 12 crazy people are really, the small number. In this case, we're not talking about 12. We're talking about like 2 or 3. So this is kind of how it started here. And I took some screenshots from an alternate account because that's the only way I can see any of this nonsense. Okay, so here is one. Billy, I met you at a couple cons. I read your books. I know you're conservative, but you never struck me as an a-hole. Okay, right now that sentence, this is something that radicals do. This is something that activists do. If you don't believe me, I will prove it to you. We're going to go over some rules for radicals, and this is a tactic. I'm not going to say it was well executed or anything like that. It's really, really transparent, but this is what they do.
I know you're conservative, like that's a bad thing, but you never struck me as an a-hole. So this is the threat, basically. I'm going to call you this bad name. And I've heard it before, like, I don't think that you're homophobic, or I don't think that you're transphobic. I don't think that you're a bigot, but if you associate with these people, you could be. It's this threat of this accusation, which this one's actually pretty mild compared to some that come up. Anyway, he continues, right now you are hitching your wagon to some very dangerous people. In what ways are they dangerous? And in what ways is he hitching his wagon? That's the thing. Is talking with anybody hitching your wagon to them? I don't think so. I've said this before. I reserve the right to talk to anybody that I want on my stream. I think Billy Tucci deserves that same right to speak to anybody he wants, just like you deserve the right to speak to whomever you want on Twitter. So yeah, that doesn't mean you're hitching your wagon to anybody. That's weird. That's so weird. And dangerous people, yeah, I doubt that. When you lay down with dogs, you get fleas. These fleas, though, they goose step. Okay, so there's Nazis. So yeah, you lay down with dogs, you get fleas, you become a Nazi. So if you talk to somebody on your stream, you're going to become a Nazi. This is incredibly stupid logic. It's also a really rude thing to say. And it's directly trying to intimidate Billy Tucci. Now, understand there's more context to this. I don't want to go through all of it because it's not important, but I will tell you that Billy Tucci tried to have a discussion. He was trying to, I think what most people do when they first run into these people on Twitter, he was trying to have, give them the benefit of doubt and talk to them about, maybe there's some kind of misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding. Billy Tucci has just not experienced this before. Now it gets more difficult because you get a lot of people that are supporters of Billy Tucci and they want him to be happy and successful, and they'll jump in and they'll say, just block, don't engage him. You're just making it worse. And I will say, I don't think that helps. Yes, you're right. You should just ignore them and block them. But when you're in that moment, and especially if you haven't been engaged to that before in that way, I think it's actually better for supporters to jump in and just say, hey, Billy, you're cool, man. You didn't do anything wrong. Because if you get trapped on Twitter and it feels like you're surrounded by everybody, it's a gaslighting thing. You're the one acting out of turn. You're being crazy. They specifically try to isolate. And that's why, these activists will block everybody else except for their target. That's because they specifically are trying to gaslight that target. They want that target to feel like they're the only ones acting in this way and that everybody else is trying to bring them to the light. They start to second guess themselves, all those kinds of things. And part of that is because they've blocked anybody else that has the ability to even just see about it and show support for Billy. Yeah, I think the best thing you can do is just be like, Billy, you didn't do anything wrong, man. You're good. Like, just reinforce that he talked to somebody about comics on his YouTube channel, for crying out loud. That's what his channel is for. It had nothing to do with politics. And even if it did, let's be honest, you can have a lot of problems with the war campaign folks, but saying that they're Nazis is ridiculous. Objectively speaking, that's ridiculous. Okay, so here's the other thing then. If the tactic doesn't work, he's going to turn to his own echo chamber and basically restate in an untrue way what he did. And by the way, I'm not telling you to go contact Tim Doyle. Who cares? What's the point? I would rather have you contact Billy Tucci and just say, hey man, you're awesome. That's the way that you can make progress. Okay, so Tim Doyle says, to me, Billy Tucci, and he spelled his name wrong. Me to Billy Tucci. Okay, here's a fake quote he made up. Oh no, Billy, you may not know this, but those people you're having on your show are bigots of the worst kind. Comicsgate hate trolls, be careful. And then Billy Tucci blocks him. Okay, I just read you what he said.
That's not at all what he said. He had the threat. Look at it again. He had the threat. I know you're conservative, but I didn't think you were an a-hole. Like, this is the threat of what you are, what we're going to call you if you don't step in line. Yeah, and then you're in bed with dangerous people. So totally different, and I don't use quotes if you're not quoting. This is my pet peeve. I hate this. If you're paraphrasing, then paraphrase. If you're quoting something with quotation marks, it should actually say what you said. So I did actually take the screenshot and send it back to him so he could see. But again, I had to do this through an alternate account. Okay, so I actually, this was another comment. He said I wasn't insulting to him or anything. Oh, really? you said conservative like it's a dirty word, and then you basically called him an a-hole. I was trying to give him the information. This is Tim Doyle, by the way. I was trying to give him the information that you all were doing as well. It's just sad. Another old white male conservative. Again, like, that's not insulting. Another old white male conservative. Like, your unmutable characteristics have anything to do with anything. This is stupid. Another old white male conservative falling down the alt-right rabbit hole, never to be seen again. He was talking about comics. Has nothing to do with alt-right. It's annoying. So yeah, I responded. You were insinuating that he was an a-hole. If your enemy, if he had your enemies on his show to talk about comics, yeah. So he actually did respond back to me. I'm not going to respond back. I'm done. He said that was not my intention. No, this is the show now that is being put on for your site. I was warning him that he was getting in bed with a-holes and bigots. It seems that despite dozens of well-intentioned warnings from peers and fans, he prefers the company of bigots. That's not true. Another thing here is to say, like, oh, I'm your fan, like you're levered. It's the threat, okay? The threat. I'm your fan. If you don't want to upset your fan, then you're going to listen to me. That is emotional blackmail. That's exactly what this is. You don't need fans like that that are going to shame you into who you can and can't have on your stream. This is crazy. Now, I don't want to be accused of doing the same thing that's going on here and pushing them to the extreme and saying Tim Doyle's an extremist. But let's look at what he says himself. He says Antifa is a response to fascism. If you don't support fascism, you are Antifa. This is the same thing with, like, the feminist debate. You believe men and women should be equal, then therefore you're a feminist. You have to adopt my ideology if you don't agree with that extreme ideology. This is a fallacy. It's stupid. And so obviously you see how the logic works. That means if you say you're not Antifa, you must be a fascist. Okay, normal people don't talk like this. This is something that extremists say. I don't know why I'm blocked by whoever this is on my alternate account. I hardly ever do anything there. This is insane. This is not cool. Okay, that's extremism. And you can even see, if you Google it, Tim Doyle Antifa, you actually see in the search results, he used to have his name listed on Twitter. You can change that willy-nilly. Tim Doyle Antifa is good, actually. It won't show up now because he's changed the name, but we still see it archived for Google searches. Yeah, so it's needless to say, he sees Antifa as a good thing, and he counts himself as a member of Antifa. So what does that matter? Well, rules for radicals. I've gone over this before. It's been several months, though. We're going to go over a few of these, and you picture what was going on here and how these might be useful. It might sound like a conspiracy theory, a conspiratorial thing to say that, oh, they're radicals that are doing this kind of stuff. They're not just, it wasn't my intention, that kind of stuff. It wasn't my intention. I was just trying to be a good friend. No, it absolutely was your intention. You've said that you are an activist, okay? These are the things that you like to use, and we'll lump them together. Okay, power is not only what you have, but what your enemies think you have. Yep. If they think that you're a fan, then you have power. If they think that you have money and you're going to actually be buying their book,
then you have power. If they think that you have like tons of hordes of people on your side that are there to shame and scorn, then that's enough to have power over somebody, okay? This is exactly a tactic that they use. It's not by mistake, because we're talking about a very small number of people on Twitter that are really into this kind of stuff. They're activists. This is not normal. Okay, never go outside the expertise of your people. Unfortunately, they don't stick to that rule very often, but they'll just make stuff up. Or some of the expertise is made up social science stuff, like what words you can and can't say, and intersectional hierarchies and all that kind of stuff that is extremely debatable, but they'll use it as fact so that they can be an expert. Whenever possible, go outside the expert of the enemy, make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. And again, that's people don't like Nazis. So when you call people a Nazi and you know they're not a Nazi, it's actually because you know that they think that Nazis are reprehensible. That's what's going on. If somebody was openly like a white nationalist or a Nazi, an Aryan Brotherhood person, calling them a Nazi would have no effect, because they would call themselves a Nazi. The reason they do that is because they know you are not a Nazi, but they also know that you think that kind of stuff is evil. So that's why they're going to use it against you. Don't fall for it. It's the best thing that you can do is don't fall for it. And then they don't have the power. Ridicule is a man's most potent weapon. Yep, it works. I'm telling you. There's a reason why comedy shows take over political dialogue, even when it's not that funny. It's the ridicule. There's a reason why YouTube channels, like I don't think mine does all that great of a job at ridiculing people. There are many others that do, but ridiculing something that's ridiculous absolutely has power. So, and that is a two-edged sword for sure. Okay, a good tactic is one that your people enjoy. So yeah, they're having fun doing it. That's for sure. A tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. I wish they'd listen to that rule, because it really gets old. It stops working. Keep the pressure on. That happens for sure. The threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself. This is one of the biggest things that's absolutely true. The threat of something is more terrifying than the thing itself. Let's think about doxing for a minute. The threat of doxing, it drives people to go to great lengths to keep their identity hidden because they don't want to be doxed. My name's out there. I'm an individual, and I'm not ashamed of anything that I have said or done online. I try to conduct myself in a way that, and anybody that knows me would be like, oh, yep, that's that's in character. If it might not be for you, I get it. But if you are just being yourself and you don't have that anonymity, they can't threaten you by taking away your anonymity. Doxing doesn't mean anything. If they're threatening violence upon you and they're going to come to your house or something, you can get law enforcement involved. And I realize that can be a scary thing too. But that's what they want it to be. They want it to be terrifying. And that's why they'd say, just so you know, I don't think of you as an a-hole, but you're associating with these people. It's the threat of being labeled as an a-hole. You're not this bad thing yet. You're not a bigot yet, but you might be a bigot. And I'll let you know when that happens. That is absolutely a threat. Absolutely. It's not a violent threat, but it is a reputational threat. And it's something that they do all the time. Guys, this isn't happening by chance. It's not something that they just one day, like it's just in their nature. I mean, maybe a little bit. But these are planned tactics that they use. This happens all of the time, and it's not by accident. It's because it works. Or it works on a lot of people. Okay, number 10 here is the major premise of tactics is the development of operations that will maintain constant pressure upon the opposition. That could look like whatever you want it to look like, I guess. Number 11 is if you push a negative hard and deep enough, it will break through into the counter side. That's right. If they try to label you long and hard enough negatively, it will push through. People get labeled that way, but it also does, it can make people feel crazy. It can make them start to doubt themselves. All sorts of stuff like that. This is done absolutely on purpose. Number 12 is the price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative. Oh, the price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative. I'm not sure I can actually draw a straight conclusion to that, but there you go. Number 13, pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. This is happening all the time. Why do you think they block everybody else except their target? Then they lock them in, they freeze them by dogpiling them in isolation, personalize it. They don't make it about your comics or about your show. They make it about you personally and your character. This is disgusting. Don't fall for it. And then polarize it. And that again, that happens all the time. And this is all the stuff that's happening publicly. They still jump into sock puppet accounts, alternate accounts, and go in and start problems. They do. They absolutely do. They live for this kind of stuff. And this isn't a lot of people. Most people are happy to make comics, do their own thing. Most creators, they just want to succeed, and that's cool. But it's activists like this. This is why I'm standing up to it. This is why many others have. And I'm thinking of like Douglas Ernst. He's a friend of mine, and he's been one that has stood up against this stuff a long time ago. And it feels good when someone's standing up for you, even if it's not you personally. It's for your ideals. It's for, just who you are and your interest in comics and all that kind of stuff. So again, the reason why people call Ethan Van Sciver Uncle Ethan many times is because he was one that would stand up for people. People don't want to be called bigots, especially when they're not bigots. They don't want to be called Nazis, especially when they're not Nazis, and they don't have to. You don't have to listen to this kind of stuff. So I really don't want to get into too much on like fighting the culture war, but I can say you can undermine it. Knowing those things that they do, you can undermine it. The best thing that you can do is if you see somebody getting piled on Twitter like this, in the case of Billy Tucci, say words of encouragement to Billy Tucci, because that breaks this freeze or this the personalization and all that kind of stuff. They're trying to gaslight and make somebody feel terrible about themselves. If you can jump in there and tell that person and give a counter narrative so that they realize that there are sane people out there and this is just a small group of people, jump in there and say nice things. You could get in there and start fighting with the other people, and that might distract some, maybe. But I really feel like the most effective thing you can do is actually say just positive things to the victim. So in this case, Billy Tucci, I think, came out on top. He took it like a professional. He tried to be cordial. He tried to be nice. And in the end, he blocked. There's nothing wrong with blocking an individual that is trying to ruin your reputation. I don't like block bots. I really despise that. All these pros, again, I couldn't see this on my main account because I'm blocked along with just about everybody else. But I'll say Billy Tucci has the right to do his comics. He has the right to talk to anybody he wants to. And you don't really get a vote in that, unfortunately. Fortunately, you don't get a vote. He's going to keep doing his thing. Okay, so thank you for watching. I think it's a little bit of a long video, but I think this is all important stuff. Show Billy Tucci some love wherever you can find him. I know his site is called, his YouTube channel is called Crowdfunding Comics. Go check him out. Go subscribe. Let him know in the comment section that you think he's awesome, because he is. Let him know on Twitter, all that kind of stuff. Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole debacle and how you can be vigilant against this kind of activism. And I'll see you next time.